Hi everybody, it's Biba, Pédron, business and mindset coach, and welcome for this new interview this week for the Let's Connect talk show. And as you may know by now, every week I interview an expert. I put my network to your door, bring my network to your door, and in order to help you to grow your business much faster. That's what I do. That's what I teach to my clients, how to grow their business much faster with the right marketing strategy, with the right mindset. But I know that sometimes it's very interesting to hear the things from different people and different perspectives. So that's the reason why every week I bring a very good expert and somebody who has a lot to share and who is like me, like to share a lot. So that's why today I have the pleasure to have Jacqueline Shaulis. Mm-hmm. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hello.
So you're known as an Excitable Introvert. You guide introverted women to get seen, heard, and respected by embracing their awesome. You, the founder of Awesome Enterprise LLC, you are an international speaker and global bestselling author. And today you will tell us how to be an influential introvert. So Jacqueline, how are you?
I'm well. I'm much better now. I see your smiling face.
Thank you. Thank you. So I introduce you the very short version. So before we start really on speaking on introvert, can you tell us a little more about who you are, what you do, who do you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. My passion is helping introverted women, particularly introverted women of color. What I find, especially in the US, but even abroad, that women who are naturally introverted, who tend to shy away or step back, oftentimes that becomes a penalty for them. And so my job, my goal, and my focus is helping them to really honor that introversion. Don't try to be an extrovert. Mm-hmm. You're not, you're an introvert. Honor that, and then instead craft the ways that you're showing up in your business. So it may be that you need to institute certain tools or just your framework, that is a way that supports you so that you are supporting others.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. And I remember the first time we spoke because we met networking online, but now we can't go out of a house anyway. And you're in New York and I'm in France, in Normandy. So I don't know if we will ever met if it was not for social media, but it's good that we met. And I remember at the end of our conversation, I told you, I said, I'm really the profile for the people that you serve, because first I'm introvert, that you don't know, but I can tell. And second, I'm also a half woman of color, and that nobody can see it, but I am. And that was interesting, the conversation that we had after that. And what do you think that there's a difference between a woman of color introvert and a woman in general introvert?
Absolutely. And I typically look at the US. The US tends to set the tone for the way many other countries operate, for good or bad. And what I find interesting is that the expectations, particularly of women of color or any intersectionality, that there's this expectation that you have to speak up, that you have to get involved, that you have to lean in. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But the problem comes when the expectation isn't just that you show up, it's that you show up and you be the representative of your demographic. So now, instead of you just coming into a workspace and meeting with clients and you are simply representing yourself, you are now representing all women and all women of your ethnicity and all women of your gender identity. And so on top of you already not being someone who is able to, and let me reframe that. Sometimes introverts, we tend to think that, we can't interact with people, or we can put it on. And what I totally get that as an introvert, I want to reframe that, because it's not that you're putting on. What we do is we are very selective with who we share our energy with, because it takes a lot out of us to engage with people. We are very sensitive. And so just going in a grocery store even, it can be just draining, and you don't have to speak to anyone. And so imagine, for those of you who are not introverts or who may be on the ambivert side, so you navigate between the two, it can be very overwhelming to already have to engage with, as an entrepreneur, you are the face of your business. You are the one who has to make the contact. And now on top of that, you're the representative of all the demographics. It's absolute nonsense. But this is the reality that we have to navigate.
Yeah. Do you think it's cultural, or do you think it's in general in any country, or it is like specific in the United States?
I feel like there are aspects of it that are specific to the US. Mm-hmm. What I find interesting is that for other countries, especially where there's, if you think of women of color, when you look at that from country to country, that's, for many countries, that's not a thing. Like, what do you mean woman of color? What is that? You may be a woman who is from a certain area, or your family is from a certain area, or you may have a certain ethnic affiliation, but woman of color is not a thing. So in those spaces, it's curious to see how those dynamics play out, because then it becomes an ethnic or even a regional situation. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've seen that as well, where there are certain regions that are put on a pedestal, or who are not for certain reasons. I know in New York City, that's certainly one of those similar things. New York City is not the US, like, by any means. And so I know there in France, Paris is not France. These sorts of things. But when it comes to introverts and how women are really perceived in those respects, those similarities are still there. So why it may not be, let's say in France, where as a Black woman, you are the representative of all Black women. You may be the representative of all Nigerian women, of all African women. For instance, you're the representative of all Turkish women because you're Turkish. So if you are not engaging, and you are not participating, and you are not volunteering for everything, oh, well, why did we hire this Turkish woman? We can't trust ... fill it in. So that's the interesting dynamic, from like a difference between the US and other countries. But that same thread, sadly, that same penalizing thread is there.
Pretty much everywhere. Yeah. And I will explain, because I say that I'm half a woman of color. People will say, well, what is she talking about? Well, people don't say it. Well, you saw it. You told me after. Yeah, you noticed something.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. It's like,
But is she a sister or not? And actually, my father was Black, from the French Caribbean. But it's interesting also. That's what I asked, because I see the difference of culture between the US and France. I mean, in France, my father passed away, but even when I was a little girl at school, everybody knew who was my father. Because I was in the same school from the age of 5 to the age of 18. So even if people knew that my father was Black, I stay white woman, a white person. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed, what was strange for me when I arrived in the United States, I have a lot of Black friends, and they introduce me as a Black person, or they mention that my father is Black. And immediately people say, oh, you Black. So it's interesting, because in France, I have a Black father and I'm white, but in the US, I have a Black father, so I'm Black. So, I manage with everything and with everybody. And, but it's very interesting how the culture from one country to another, it's really different. So now since we're speaking about the introvert, how to be an influential introvert? What do we have in order to be an influential introvert? Because usually that's a strange to say we are an influent. If we're introvert, usually we don't see us. An influent person is somebody who we will be seen on Instagram doing selfies or that kind of things. Right. So how to be an influential introvert?
And that's exactly what you said is precisely the conundrum that is there, because perception becomes reality. So as an introvert, you know that this is how you operate. You know that you feel drained. You know that you prefer to have solitude just for your own kind of self-development, your own peace of mind. And yet, especially as an entrepreneur, you know that you have something to offer the world. You have some solution, be it a product or service, that you want to bring out. So how do you balance the two? The perception that introverts are antisocial, that they're shy, that they're reserved, that they're private. Those are all attributes that some introverts have, but that doesn't necessarily make you an introvert. An introvert is someone who processes energy and gets their enthusiasm or their motivation by having time to themselves. Often it's by themselves, just in solitude, reading a book, being in nature, so on and so forth. But the curious thing is that some of the most influential people in society are introverts. Take Beyonce, she's an introvert. She is a severe introvert. Now people like, what? Yeah. It's Beyonce. But
it's interesting.
Has,
I tend to see how people who are on stage, even if you're not a singer, but most of the speakers that I know, and you're a speaker also, most people that I know who are on stage, we are introvert. And people are saying, you're not introvert. You're on stage, you can be in front of thousands of people. Yeah, same thing with singers.
Exactly. And what it comes down to is just a navigation of perspective. I like to use Beyonce because she is, first of all, so known. She's Beyonce. And a lot of people find it hard to believe that she is, in fact, an introvert. But one of the things that she does that's really interesting, and that as just everyday non-Beyoncés that we can do, is she's very adamant about honoring her introversion. So when she is not on stage, she is simply herself. She's relaxed. She carves out space for herself to be alone, to be introspective, to get those insights. That's how she's able to bring these songs and think of these choreography and all of these things. But also, she recognizes that as part of her service, of her gifting to the world, it's through her music, it's through her performance. And so one of the ways that she's done that is she has crafted this alter ego, which many people have read about her, Sasha Fierce. And so for us, we often tap into a similar thing. We might call it putting on. Like we can be extrovert. And it's not that we are being extroverted at that moment. It's that we are recognizing that we have something to be of service, and we have to give a certain amount of our energy to that space. So when we're on stages, we know that people have an expectation that we are showing up bold. And if we are going to serve, which is our calling, we have to show up in a way that is different than we would when we're off the stage. So some might call it like a coping mechanism almost. Like, how do I find the container for my energy? Are you worth the crash that I'm going to have after this engagement? And so it's finding that balance. But before you can even find the balance, you have to first honor the fact that that is who you are. I mean, Tom Hanks is an introvert. Barack Obama is an introvert. Meryl Streep is an introvert. These are such notable people who are out in a big way, and we typically would not associate them with being introverts. But the way that they are able to navigate, they put service first. Service comes as their focus. So, okay, I've got to use my energy and I've got to engage with people. Okay, how do I get the most energy bang for my buck? If I have to engage with people, what is the way that I can best serve and show up and make it worth my while, so that I am serving while I am present, and I can comfortably and peacefully retreat in solitude so that I can recoup. That's the biggest thing, is honoring yourself and then, crafting those spaces.
It's interesting what you said, because I think about myself, as an introvert, and I'm a single child. So I was raised alone, used to take care of myself. My father was working at night, so he was in the house when I was not working, but he was sleeping. So I was in my room and I used to do what I have to do. And it's interesting how when I go outside as an entrepreneur, or even in my personal life, I can go to a party, I can go to a conference, I can go to events, I can go, and it's okay for like 2-3 days. I can show up fully myself, and I'm very close to people. But then, as you say, I need to go back home, and then for like a week or two, I need to be on my own. I need to that I have this retreat, and I can't show up in front of people like every day. I couldn't do that.
Absolutely. And it has to do, the reason that there is this difference, and scientists are still trying to figure out what makes someone more introverted or more extroverted, because it's really a mystery. It's a big question mark. We're getting closer to a definitive answer, but what they found is that introverts tend to be highly sensitive to stimulation. And so our brains are actually releasing a flood of dopamine when we are engaging with people. And so it's not that we don't want to be around people, because you can be an extrovert and still be antisocial. You can be an extrovert and still be shy or reserved. And I know people tend to put those apart, but those are just traits that some introverts have. But that is the reason why it is so difficult for us to be around people. And even with things like Zoom fatigue is very real for many people, but even for introverts, it's a two-edged sword, because on one hand, you are not having to physically be around people, and that's a plus. But then after a while, especially when you are serving and you are chiming in and you're contributing, you are still giving of your energy, and you still need to have those spaces where you can just breathe and be left alone. You can just have solitude. And that's really our strength, because one of the things, and there have been numerous studies, especially recently, the past couple of weeks, I want to say that it was Business Insider, I believe, that did an article, but it was pointing out how necessary introverts are in leadership, because introverts are best able to lead because they come from that place of introspection. They don't have to engage with you and be in your face and micromanage you. That's already a plus. So employees are able to better navigate. But even as entrepreneurs, because we have this space that we are reflecting within, that we are observing the world around us, and we are able to pick up on various emotional and social cues that would often get overlooked, we can tell when someone's in a certain mood. And so we can speak to that. We can relate more deeply to people's emotional states. So when you are going through an issue with your business and you're frustrated and you're stuck, an introvert is able to not only notice that and recognize it, but able to articulate that to you, so you can better see how their solution applies to you. These are things that are our natural giftings. This is why it's our secret sauce, because we are able to engage people in this way. And it's important that we recognize that, because for a lot of the times, like an introvert, you just need to get out more. You just need to talk to more people. You just need to be more of an extrovert. No, I need to be an introvert, because that's what I am. And I need to honor that, as well as recognizing how can I best show up as me in service to others, while still being able to be that solution and that answered prayer that someone's looking for.
Yeah. And I like how you say that we need to recognize our introversion as a secret source. It's like something special that we have, and it's not a weakness, it's a force, it's a strength. Force is a French word. It's a strength. Really, I really like so I guess that's how you help your clients to show that it's not something bad to be introvert, but it's something that can be very strong if you know how to use it correctly.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of the work that I do, is helping with shifting that framework, like shifting that mindset. Because it's, again, and you know this for yourself, we live in a very extroverted world. Like, you're supposed to get out, and as an entrepreneur, I mean, how are you going to be an entrepreneur if you're an introvert? And I'm sure, if not you, then some of your viewers would relate to that, where family members are like, oh, you're going to start a business? you don't get around people. How are you going to do this business? Like, those sorts of conversations. Like, okay, well, don't kill my confidence yet. Just starting. But it's absolutely true that this is our strength, because we are able to pick up on those cues, because we are able to connect with people in a much deeper way, because we want to be engaged with people in a much deeper way. So it's not simply a matter of what you can produce or what you can do for me. It's about what we can do for one another, and how can I support you so that you can be your best, so you help me be my best. That type of collaborative mindset, it's our default. It's where we come from. And so that's why I always want to make sure, especially with clients and even in conversations like this, really pointing out that shift of mindset, because that in itself is an absolute game changer.
Mhm.
It absolutely shifts how you operate if you recognize that you needing solitude is an essential part of you showing up with your solution. You can't have one effectively without the other. If you are simply trying to force yourself to be out all the time, where do you have space to recoup? Where do you have space to get the insights that are needed to come up with the ideas for that next product or that next service, or even how you can best serve that client? So with my work, it's a lot of shifting that mindset, but then also, what can you do in your particular business? So if you need to have that space, how can we find a place in your schedule where for an hour or 2 hours you're networking? That's all that you're doing. That's it. You're doing it within that container. How can we make space so that you are focused on having that time that's dedicated to just zone out? Make that part of your dedicated daily schedule. These are like simple things, but who thought to do that? Oh, I as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, some people will think if it's too simple. So I said, it won't work. Yeah, but you start with something very simple.
Exactly. We tend to, like humans, not even introverts, humans tend to overcomplicate things. And let me
You'll be the first one.
Count myself as the president of overthinking. It's so easy to complicate things and to make it more difficult, but it doesn't have to be difficult. That doesn't mean necessarily that it will be easy, because you still need to pick up the phone and talk to people. And as an introvert, gag. It's just why? Because you need to show up so that people know of your service. They know of your product. You can't serve and be a benefit and that help to people if you're not engaging with them. So you need to have that, but how can you do it in a way that is both empowering and supportive of you as you empower and support those that you serve?
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the word mindset, and that's actually something that I work a lot with the people I work with my clients, and I work mainly with women, actually. So how is it, because the mindset is important for everybody, and even somebody who is extrovert needs to have the right mindset and to have the positive mindset. But what would you say would be the first two things that somebody who is introvert have to switch their mindset in order to make sure, as an entrepreneur, to make sure that it doesn't become an handicap to be introvert, but what they can do to show to the world that they have a business, to even start a business? Do you have like some tips that you recommend to your clients when they come to you, like the very few steps that they have to do? You mentioned like taking an hour to networking. That could be one step, but what would you recommend?
I would say first and foremost, honoring your introversion. Mm-hmm. That's the absolute foundation. If you are coming into a space, especially as an entrepreneur, thinking that you're at a deficit because you're an introvert, then you are not going to take the steps to engage people. You are not going to show up fully. And even when you have products and service that are needed and that are beneficial, you will hold yourself back because you think, oh, people, oh, I'm an introvert, I can't do it. Like, you will sabotage your own success if you don't come into it seeing that being an introvert is a gift. It is a blessing. And along with that is crafting, and kind of the step that I use with clients to get them to really understand this is for them to think about what is that highest version of themselves. They could just wave a magic wand and they could suddenly be that person that they have in their mind. If they were that in reality, what would that look like? What would that feel like? What would they be doing? And starting from that place is incredibly empowering. And I can speak from that on a personal level because that's how I started ages ago, because I just got fed up with I knew I had so much to offer, but I'm the quiet girl with a book on the corner. Like, I'm not, what can I do? And it's like, you know what? This is stupid. This is just absolutely ridiculous. So if I was just me, how would just me look? And first getting clear on that and honoring, okay, I am an introvert and I don't want to people, but I do want to serve. Literally writing out, What are these aspects of myself that I see and think in my head that I haven't yet started doing? Then the next step of that is for you to start doing those things while honoring yourself. So for me, it was, okay, I know that I want to be on television. I know that I want to write books. I know that I want to be able to speak life into people and have interesting conversations. I know I want to travel the world, so on and so forth. And so once I had that on paper, this version of myself, okay, so if I'm going to be on TV, all right, that's a pretty big thing. What can I do to work towards that? Okay, well, I want to be more comfortable with speaking. For me, it was getting engaged with a speaking coach, or at the time it was like for debate, and getting comfortable with just being in front of people. And many introverts have this aspect that once we're with people that we're comfortable with, we have no problems with engaging. It's wonderful. It's just that initial hump. So honoring yourself as an introvert and starting with that highest, what is that highest vision of yourself? What is that? Put it actually on paper, not just typing, write it out on a piece of paper. That would be the absolute first step. The next step of that, and particularly as an entrepreneur, is to then look at the ways that you, as an introvert, can best serve your client. So as an introvert, you know that you like to dive deep into conversation. You know, you like to dive deep into how things work. Like, I don't care about your birthday and what's your favorite color. What is your perspective on life? How do you see the world? If that is how you operate, how can you craft an experience that is similar to that in your work? So does that mean that on your website, you're creating a little space where you're sharing a paragraph on your philosophies in life, how you view the world, so that you can start that engagement? Does that mean that if you are a coach, that you create space for people to engage with one another, but then also allowing space for them to kind of have a breather as opposed to being forced into group things? Are you creating that? As an entrepreneur, we get to create those things. And that's another important thing. We're the ones who are running it. We can choose. If you choose as an introvert that you want to primarily work online and have limited face-to-face contact with people, you can absolutely do that. There are so few industries that is not possible. So there's so many aspects of being an introvert that, as we've talked about, that are so supported and that are so necessary. But if we don't first honor that, that's our space, we can't do anything. And then once we honor it, we need to actually look for ways that we can integrate those pieces.
It's remind me, you mentioned before going to networking events or networking, and it's funny because I remember 20 years ago when I arrived in New York, I pretty much didn't speak English, and I didn't know anything about networking because we didn't have networking in France. But I learned that, you know, the entrepreneur in the US, they find a client, 80% of them find a client through networking. So I said, I have to learn that. And I remember the very first time I attended an event, it was in a bar in New York. Like there were like 100 or 150 people. I took my name tag. I turned around in the bar and I said, I can't stay. I can't talk to anybody. I can't stay. I can't do anything. So I left within a minute. I was out of the bar. And then I was like, really? Okay. I decided that I want to be an entrepreneur in the US. So I have to change that, because if I do the same thing the next time, if I don't talk to anybody, then I won't be able to have a business. So the next time I went back and I said, okay, this time I won't leave until I talk to 2 people. And then I cheated because I waited on the corner of the room with the glass, and it was not even alcohol, with a glass. And I just waited for people to come to me. And then it become more easier because then people start and they start the conversation. They come to see you, they start a conversation. And then you have to really make sure of what you want. You have to be very specific of what you want in your business, because if you let them find that you're an introvert on the way, well, you won't be able to get the business that you want and that you expect. So that's very important.
Absolutely.
So, Thank you very much. And I mean, you told them a lot of information. So if people want, if we have women who watch us and are introvert, and that's a big issue for them, that they block the fact that they can have the success in the business, where they can find you?
Well, you can always find me online at iembraceawesome.com. When you go to that site, you'll learn a little bit more about me. You'll see some of those elements that we talked about here. You'll see that in full display. And if you want to have a one-on-one conversation, you'll be able to do that also. I know it can be a bit impersonal, just have a website, but if you want a conversation, and if you want to see where you can get a bit more support in taking those steps to step out and to honor yourself, go to iembraceawesome.com, connect with me there. And on social media, I'm at JK Shaulis. You'll see all that on the website as well. But that's the best place to find me and to connect with me, iembraceawesome.com.
I like this website. It tells everything. I love it. So hope everybody, you really like, I mean, it was a different topic that I have usually, but I like when we met the first time, I love the topic. I love that the fact that you help women in that topic, in that area, because there's a lot of work to do. And the same as me, you know, you want women to be visible, you want women to be successful. So that's exactly what we want. And then if you're a woman and you want to start a business, or you already have a business, but then even if you're not introvert, but you want to grow your business much faster, you want more visibility, you want to work on your mindset, you want to work on the offers that you have, because maybe you're too shy to raise your price, you're too shy to sell yourself, or that kind of thing. That's really how I help people. I help my clients. I usually help them to double or triple the price immediately as soon as we start together, so that way they can double or triple the price within 90 days. So if you don't have the result that you want today in your business and you want to go much faster, to grow much faster, same thing, you will have the link to my website, to the place to take a fast track strategy session, and we will talk for 30 minutes. We will see your challenge, we will see your needs, you will see your goals, and how you can really grow your business much faster. So Jacqueline, thank you very much. It was great to talk to you again, and as always. And
it was wonderful.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that we reached outside of our introvert bubble to connect with one another.
That's what's a lot also, you know, and the virtual also today, you know, within a year. Well, for the past year, it's very difficult for people to go outside to meet other people. And I said, take this opportunity, since you can't go out of your house, take this opportunity also to network, to meet people all over the world. I mean, I'm in France, Normandy, you in New York. I used to live in New York. We never met. And so maybe when I come back to the US, we will be able to see each other. But really take this opportunity. You know, the world goes very bad right now everywhere in the world for a lot of things. But that's a good thing. You know, that's a good time to start a business also, even if you think the situation is not the best. There's a lot of opportunities to start your business. And network with people. You can do it on social media. Jacqueline and I, we met through LinkedIn. Network with people, make sure that you go to people, and that's how you will be able to grow your business and also change your life. So thank you, everybody. And thank you very much, Jacqueline. And for everybody else, I'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.